Hi, my name is Aya, you're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to do my next recent reads video. So these are gonna be books 21 through 30. I will have my playlist for all my recent reads linked for you, so if you wanna watch me review every book I read or DNF'd this year, then check that playlist out. I decided at the beginning of the year that I'm not gonna be doing monthly wrap-ups anymore, so this is basically me wrapping up books in chunks of 10. Most of the books I'm going to be talking about are books that I have reviewed. So if there's any review I did for any of these books, they will either be in the cards or in the description. I think the description will be your best bet if you want to quickly find out where the review is, where I talk more in depth about a particular book. Also, this title is definitely not clickbait, and I'm gonna save you the trouble for looking for these books. As always with my recent reads, I'll talk about these books in order of enjoyment. So I'll talk about my least favorite books, working my way up to my favorite books. So I, in fact, had two-star reads this time, so I'm gonna talk about them first. But honestly, I also had a lot of 5 stars this time around, so I will also be talking about some of my favorite books. So I would encourage you to stick around. I know people tend to love watching videos where people are hating on books, but I would encourage you to continue watching because, like I said, I've read some of my favorite books too. So let's get started with my two-star reads. The first one is unfortunately Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This one, I really did not enjoy. You can see my vlog. You can see me deteriorate while watching that video. I did not like this book. So this, I believe, is still being marketed as a romance, and this, in my opinion, is not a romance. So you follow Alice, and she has been waiting for her big writing break. She hasn't gotten one yet. And then all of a sudden, she gets in contact with this mysterious, reclusive, former socialite named Margaret Ives. When she meets Margaret Ives, she realizes that she's not the only one that has been hired to write her biography. Somebody else has been hired, and that person is Hayden Anderson, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer. So, you know, she thinks, okay, well then I don't stand a chance really, because he already obviously has the accolades. So Margaret, in fact, tells them that both of them will have a month to work with her, and then at the end of the month, Margaret will decide who can write her autobiography. But the catch is both of them have to sign NDAs, which means they cannot communicate about what they learn, and both of them feel like she's hiding things, and there's like this mystery tied to it. So you get chapters from the present where eventually Alice and Hayden will fall in love, but you also get like chapters from Margaret Ives' past, but not just her past, her father's past, her grandfather's past, I believe even her great-grandfather's past. So that is basically the synopsis. If you can tell by the synopsis, this to me felt like a very watered-down version of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. The only thing this book made me want to do is reread Evelyn Hugo just to see what a good story told like this is like. I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh. I felt like this book was boring. I really didn't care anything about this Margaret Ives, and especially not, the thing I think would really tank this book for me was the fact that we didn't just talk about her story, we talked about like the grandfather and the great-grandfather. It's like, that is just not that interesting to me. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like that whole thing, I don't really like. I prefer not to read about rich socialites. I just don't. And I feel like with Evelyn Hugo, she at least started from the bottom and worked her way up to the top, you know? So this just was not that interesting. Also, the romance I hated. I didn't think these two should be together. I felt like Alice constantly did whatever Hayden wanted, and I felt like she had no agency in the relationship. So this was not it for me. So 2 stars, I did not like it. And I am gonna be so mad if this wins the Goodreads Choice Awards for the romance category, because I do not think it deserves it. I feel like all her other books, yes, it was annoying that Emily Henry kept winning, but at least those were romances. Like, I felt like they were romances. This is not a romance in my opinion. Moving on to my other 2-star read. This one I enjoyed a little bit more, and it was Enigma by RuNyx. I did review this, so check that out. This was actually my first RuNyx. I don't know if it's gonna be my last. I think I really want to read her Darkverse series, because that is at least a little bit of a more mature, those characters are more mature, I think, I hope. Anyway, you follow Salem and Kaz, and Salem is part of this like rich family, but some things have happened in her family that kind of made them basically outcasts of society. 2 years ago, her sister committed suicide while she was studying at Mortimer University. And like that started like a downward spiral for her family. So Mortimer University is this like prestigious university on this outskirts of a town, on top of these cliffs basically. So this is what the university looks like. I don't know if you can really see that. And there's basically 2 ways to enter. Either you're a legacy, which means other like generations of your family have also gone to Mortimer University, or you will get a scholarship. Either way, it's a very exclusive university. So Salem is a legacy. And basically the reason she's going is because she wants to find out what happened to her sister. While she's there, she realizes that there's more to the story. She doesn't believe her sister actually committed suicide. She comes in contact with Kaz, who's this like mysterious guy, dangerous guy. And basically, eventually they realize that both of them are kind of looking for similar answers. So they start working together, and that's also how they fall in love. Like I said, I just didn't like this. I could not take Kaz seriously for the life of me. The things that came out of his mouth made me just laugh. I really didn't believe in the romance. I do feel like part of it is me, because this had a big Muse plot line, and there's one thing I realized about myself is I don't like reading about Muse stories. I just don't. This is the 3rd one I've read, and pretty much all of them I've read, I've given those books pretty low ratings. One of them was One Hot Italian Summer. I hated that book, and one big giant part of why I didn't like it was the Muse storyline. God of Ruin by Rena Kent is one of my least favorite Rena Kent, and it also has a big Muse storyline, and this also had a big Muse storyline. I just don't give a fuck. And that might be me. Maybe I am like one of the least artistic person in the world, so I don't get the concept of muses. But I don't know, I just didn't like that. Also, like I said, I just didn't believe in the romance. It felt like it was more tell than show. I feel like we were not privy to them falling in love. The only thing we saw was them just fucking each other. And this hero thought he could fix anything with sex. Anytime there was something wrong with the heroine, he would just either fuck her or get her off in some other way. And, you know, that is just, like, at some point you need to actually communicate with each other. We never actually got to see them getting to know each other. Also, this mystery was the most obvious thing in the world to me. When it was finally revealed, it was kind of lackluster to me. Like, this is marketed as a dark romance. Yeah, technically it's supposed to be, but it didn't feel that dark to me. And also this hero, I didn't like his nickname for her, which if you've watched some of my videos, you know I'm a sucker for nicknames, but his one, he called her Little Asp, and I just rolled my eyes. So this hero didn't work for me, the romance didn't work for me, the mystery didn't work for me. So in that case, there was very few things that were working for me. The Year We Fell Down by Sarina Bowen. This one I'm reading for a video I'm gonna be doing that is coming out in 2 weeks, I believe, a vlog I'm going to be doing. Anyway, this is the first book in her Ivy Years series, and the reason I'm reading this mostly is because I really want to read her Brooklyn Bruiser series. I feel like the characters in the Ivy Years and the Brooklyn Bruisers are connected somehow, and I tend to like reading books in chronological order. So The Year We Fell Down, you follow two characters, obviously. One of them is Corey. So Corey and Adam. And Corey, she, like about a year ago, she had this big accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. And Adam, like half a year ago, like a couple weeks ago, he had an accident that left him, that made him like break his leg in two parts. So both of them are put up in this like special student housing that caters to their injuries, basically. Like the rooms are a bit bigger. It's like very easy for them to get into their house, like their rooms. So technically, like Adam is supposed to be there temporarily, but Corey, for the foreseeable future, will have to stay there. She uses mobility aids, she uses a wheelchair and crutches. This basically is them very much in the beginning building a friendship, and eventually they fall in love. Adam does have a girlfriend for a big part in this book. It's basically Corey trying to navigate college life with her injury, basically. So I gave this book 2.5 stars. I just did not really enjoy it. So let's talk about things I did like. There were a lot of big parts about the disability representation that I did enjoy. I do say this, I don't have a disability, and especially I'm not paralyzed in any way. So Obviously, I don't know what that's like, but to me, some things definitely did feel like it was accurate. Like the way they had to navigate their life, basically, when sometimes there were stairs that they could not get on and stuff like that. I felt like that was pretty realistic. Also, there was a big discussion point where, so basically Adam really, he's not that easily embarrassed. Eventually they talk about her sex life after her being paralyzed, and she confesses that she hasn't had sex, she hasn't really touched herself, so she doesn't know if she actually can feel things down there, because obviously, like I said, she's paralyzed from the waist down. So he kind of makes it his mission to kind of find out and help her figure out if she actually can feel things. So that I did enjoy. I tend to really like when it's like somebody is less able-bodied, how they navigate sex. I feel like that is a very important thing to discuss, especially to make other people who have similar things going on, like, I don't know, to make them feel seen. I feel like that is you, and sometimes you're most vulnerable, and how that is navigated. I don't know, I just tend to really like that. I do have to say, talking about the disability thing, there were some things that were definitely like ableist language. She called herself a gimp a lot. And I do feel like, so this book was written in 2014, and I feel like, not to excuse it in any way, but I feel like that is a little bit a sign of the times. I don't think, or at least I would hope, that if Sarina Bowen would write this book in 2025, I would hope that she would not actually use those words. And, you know, I get that it's a complicated thing, and I'm definitely not expecting, I don't think it's realistic to think every book that has a character with a disability that they would accept that 100% and be fine with that 100% and be, you know, love that part of themselves 100%, especially in this scenario where she's pretty young. She's 19, I believe, and this only happened a year ago. So it would make sense that she has some complicated feelings about that, and that she would prefer her being the way she was before. I get that, especially since she actually, you know, she used to be a hockey player, so that is also, because she can no longer play that sport, obviously. But I feel like there were other ways to convey that those complicated feelings without her using terms like that. I felt like the romance was kind of boring. Yes, there's a cheating aspect in this book, but to me that, like, you guys know I hate cheating in books, but this didn't really feel like, the cheating things didn't really bother me, because it was clear that him and his ex, they made a deal that, so she's in Europe for most of the time that, like in this book, and they made the deal beforehand that she could have sex with any European guy she wanted. So then in that case, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me that he was falling for Corey, but because he and his ex were so different from each other and the relationship felt so shallow, it made him a very shallow character, in my opinion, which made me not really root for him that much. It was like a lot of this book was just her pining for him and him being with somebody that he obviously should not be with. And to me, this did read a little bit too young, which, yes, I'm 31. I get that I'm not the age these characters are in, but sorry, I'm a little bit washed out. Okay, hopefully that helped. I get that I'm not the age of these characters, but I have read a lot of college romances where I didn't feel like it read that young. So I don't know, those things combined made me give it 2.5 stars. Then there is a big one. Let me grab it. Silver Elite by Dani Francis. So this is a book that, you know, has been going around. People have a lot of opinions about it. We don't know who Dani Francis is. There's a lot of videos you can find of people trying to figure out who she is. To be fair, when I read this book, I knew this was getting a lot of hype. I didn't know anything about all the other things coming about with it. So I'm just going to talk about this book and what I thought about it. This book is a adult, like, romantasy dystopian, basically, where you follow Ren, and she has spent her whole life hiding, because in this world you have modifieds and primes, I think. Yeah, modifieds and primes. Primes are basically like regular humans. Modifieds have like these special abilities, like mind abilities. All of them, I believe, they can communicate with each other telepathically, and then some of them, they are empaths. They can feel whatever you're feeling. Some of them, they can actually compel you to do stuff. And Ren is a modified. When she saves a boy by actually being a very good shot, the military basically takes her and wants to train her to become a silver elite, which is basically a group that hunts down these modifieds, because usually when a modified uses their powers, their veins turn silver, so therefore a silver elite. But of course Ren is special. She doesn't have that. So whenever she uses her abilities, her veins don't turn silver, which obviously is a advantage for her. So she starts going to this silver elite training, and she really is doing very poorly at it. She has no interest in being there. She wants to just live her life and not be in the military, of course. But there's also a rebellion going on, and eventually she does get in contact with the rebellion, and they want her to continue and like be a silver elite. Her commanding officer is named Cross, and of course they have this romance going on. I gave this book 3 stars. So there were some parts of it I did definitely enjoy. This was very, very easy to read. Like, I was flying through it. It was not a hardship to read at all. I was enjoying the banter between Ren and Cross. I did enjoy all that. It was a fun way to pass the time, basically, but I do have to say, like, this was not the best thing I've ever read, because I felt like the world building was very much info dump, which another book that came out around the same time, which I can spoil, is Shield of Sparrows. That one came out around the same time, and Devney Perry has never written a fantasy novel, and I felt like she did the world building in a more subtle way and a more interesting way. So I felt like this was mostly just info dump, and usually I don't mind because I do like world building, so it doesn't really matter what way you give it to me. I tend to enjoy the learning about the world in general, but I felt like this could have been done in a better way. But mostly what made me not enjoy this book at all was Ren. I thought towards the end, I started actively hating her. I thought she was such a dumb character who made some stupid decisions that made no sense whatsoever. And at the end of the day, I just could not root for her, which she kind of ruined the story for me. If you have read this book and you want to know like actual spoilery thoughts I had about Ren, then check out my review, because I do like go in depth about the decisions she made and how dumb they were and what effect that had on me. Also, Cross, like I said, even though I did enjoy their banter together, I really did not know Cross at all. I felt like he had no personality. I didn't know him at all. And yeah, therefore those two combined, as much as I liked their banter, especially in the beginning, towards the end, I just didn't really root for this romance at all. So that's why it was a 3 stars. I do definitely understand why a lot of people love it, but to me, it was just fine. Then I read Saint by Simone. This is the 3rd and final book in her Priest series. And basically this series are 3 like erotic romances following the Bell brothers. And the Bell brothers, all of them have a different complicated relationship with religion and Catholicism after their sister committed suicide when she was 16, after years of abuse by her priest. And therefore in Priest, Tyler became a priest to try and be like a better priest than the one who hurt his sister all those years ago. In book 2, Sinner, Sean Bell, he forsook all religion. He just didn't want anything to do with religion. And in that book, he falls in love with a nun. And then the 3rd and final book is Aiden's book, and he becomes a monk. And the reason he becomes a monk is not necessarily what happened to his sister. It was mostly for him because he has struggled with his mental health for a very long time. So on this one night, he leaves his boyfriend and leaves his entire life behind to become a monk. And now 5 years later, his ex-boyfriend, who is Elijah, and he's technically his brother's best friend, he shows up at the, what is that called? Not the convent. Anyway, he shows up where Aiden now lives, telling him that he's engaged to be married. And eventually, Aiden still is not really satisfied with his monk life in the US. So his like monk brothers, I guess, they realize that and they tell him, you know what? In Europe, they are more... I'm sorry, this lighting is going in and out. It's annoying me. Sorry. So apparently in Europe, they are stricter, so they think maybe that will benefit you. So they tell him, why don't you just do that? And in the guise of going to all the breweries and maybe figuring out how we can also improve our brewery. And when Elijah realizes that, he comes along because he's now a journalist working for this like fashion magazine, and he wants to write about the breweries in Europe, I guess, the monk breweries in Europe. And this is going to be their second chance romance. Basically, they go to Belgium, to France, and to Ireland. And while doing so, they fall in love again. And since it's Simone, obviously it's an erotic romance. So They kind of roleplay in that Aiden is this like monk who has been celibate for years and years and years, and he just cannot deny his feelings anymore. So he will just so that's how they have sex, I guess. There is a chastity device used here too, which I've never read a book with that in it, and that was kind of hot too. So I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, as I have given every book in this series 4 stars. What's interesting about these books is that it is told, all of these books are told only from the male point of view, and I know this is a male-male romance, but it's only from the Bell brothers' point of view. But what was interesting about this book is we got snippets of Elijah's writing, so that's how we got like insights into his thoughts as well. I enjoyed these books. She has a beautiful writing style, and she knows how to write amazing sex scenes. So yeah, 4 stars, like I said. I am interested to read more by Simone. I just don't know where to go from here. I think I want to read either her new Camelot trilogy or the one she's writing now, the Tristan and Isolde retelling. So I don't know, one of those two I definitely want to read. So yeah, I enjoyed my time reading this series. Now for the 4.5 I had was The Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is the second and final book in the Crimson Moth duology. The first book being either Crimson Moth, what's it called? Oh, Heartless Hunter. So, since this is like a direct sequel, I cannot tell you a whole lot about this book, so I'll just tell you like the brief synopsis for the first book. So in the first book, this is a world where, or a country where witches used to rule this country until 2 years ago when a rebellion killed the witch queens, and ever since then witches have been hunted down. But every once in a while they get saved by this mysterious witch that nobody really knows who she is, the Crimson Moth. We know that the Crimson Moth is Rune, and Rune is also like this socialite who, when the new regime took over, she actually handed in her grandmother to be executed. So that's how she kind of kept, like, that's why she was kind of off the radar of these witch hunters. And now she's trying to get close to the most infamous witch hunter of them all, Gideon. But Gideon is suspicious of her from the start, and he thinks that Rune might be the Crimson Moth, which of course he's correct about. And in the first book, it's them trying to get information from the other one, but also falling in love in the meantime. And I really love the first book. Actually, I read the first book for reading BookTube's Favorite Romances vlog, and I definitely understood why that book was so beloved. A very good enemies to lovers romance, and this book kind of takes place right after the events of the first book, and I also really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I had a good time. I really love Rune and Gideon together. I am glad this was only a duology. I feel like that was perfect for this series. Yeah, I really like their banter together. I really like both characters. And what I love about this book is usually with enemies to lovers, sometimes if an author doesn't do it correctly, there's one side you clearly root for and you 100% don't understand why the other side is doing what they're doing. In this case, I could understand from both point of views. Like, I can definitely understand, given Gideon's history, given that there were like definitely some evil witch queens, why he hated witches so much. But then of course I was also rooting for Rune and her witches. So I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was beautiful, and I cannot wait to read what else Kristen Ciccarelli will write in the future. Maybe I will go back and read her last Namsara series, which is a like a dragon young adult series, I believe, but this one was beautiful. And I believe technically this is supposed to be young adult, but I think there was definitely some mature content in here, and I think any age can read it and enjoy it. Well, not any age. I believe like if you're 16 and older, I guess. I don't know, I just threw a random number in there. Really enjoyed it, would highly recommend it. Now for the 4 5 stars I had. Like I said, even though I read some of my least favorite books, I also read some of my favorites. I kind of had a hard time ranking these 5 stars, but I think I'm okay with this ranking. My first 5 star I want to talk about is King of Envy. Can you see that? No. I'll just put a picture here, but I will show you this beautiful couple here. Sorry, I am filming my other video and I realized that I said I gave King of Envy 5 stars, but I actually gave it 4.5 stars, so just came here to remedy that. So King of Envy is the 5th book in her Kings of Sin series, and for those of you who don't know, Kings of Sin is going to be 7 books, each hero embodying a different deadly sin, and of course this one is envy. You follow Vuk. He is speechless, he doesn't really talk, and he's mysterious. He's kind of scary looking. People tend to stay away from him, and he has had like a big unrequited love for his best friend's fiancée, Ayana, and Ayana is this supermodel. What he doesn't know, however, is that Ayana and her fiancé basically have this arrangement where they will have a marriage of convenience. Both of them need to get married for different reasons. She mostly needs money because she has this modeling agency that is not treating her at all and constantly takes her money. And her fiancé basically needs to get married to get his inheritance. But of course, like, they have to kind of keep up appearances, and the last thing Ayana can do is get together with her fiancé's best friend. But when the wedding gets closer, her and Vuk get closer too, and this is gonna be their romance. I really enjoyed it. I really liked Vuk and Ayana together, and before starting it, I was kind of afraid because in this series there really hasn't been any dark romances, but in her Twisted series, of course, there were two darker romances, and I didn't like them. I gave Twisted Love 3 stars, and I gave Twisted Lies, which I thought was gonna be the most like King of Envy, I gave that book 2 stars. I just really didn't like it. But I felt like this book, she did it so much better. I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. I also love the nickname, like the nickname in a foreign language he gives her. I tend to really love that. I forget what he calls her though. My Heart or something. Because he is Serbian. I do have to say, the reason this is at the bottom of my 5 stars is I really haven't found myself thinking about this book too much. I still definitely stand behind my rating. But I don't know, like comparing it to my 2 favorites in this series, which were King of Wrath and King of Greed, those 2, I still think about them from time to time, whereas King of Envy, like a week after I finished it, I haven't really found myself thinking about it too much, but I did enjoy my time, and I liked both the romance and the plot in here. There were some mystery things going on that I was interested to figure out, so yeah. Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This one I put on my June TBR actually, but then one day I was kind of in between books and I wanted just like a quick book to read. And I was like, you know what, why don't I just read this and get ahead of my TBR? So I read this, and this was so poignant, so heartbreaking, and so very well done. So this one, you follow Will, and his older brother Sean has been shot dead. And basically in his world, there are 3 rules. The first rule is no crying, no matter what. The second rule is no snitching, no matter what. And the third rule is get revenge, no matter what. So he basically thinks he knows who shot and killed his brother. So he's on his way to get revenge. And this book, basically you follow his elevator ride from the 8th floor where he lives to the bottom. And the people he meets on this elevator ride, when he gets to the bottom, if he will or will not go through with his plan for revenge. And like I said, I felt like this was poignant, it was beautiful. It definitely takes a good hard look at gun violence and like how that starts, what keeps it going, and I don't know, I felt like it was such a great story. And the fact that it's in verse, because it's like very little text. I felt like Jason Reynolds did a beautiful job with this book. It was heartbreaking, but it told such a good, poignant story in so few words. I'm always mesmerized by authors who write in verse because I cannot even imagine doing that. Like the few words, yet the things like one sentence can do to invoke emotions. It was beautiful. So yeah, there is a graphic novel. I do own the graphic novel. So I think I want to read the graphic novel too in June, just because, I don't know, I have a feeling that is going to hit me even harder than this one. So I can definitely understand, as you can see, it has won a lot of prizes. And I can definitely see why. And I honestly think that this is a great book to read for young people. So yeah, I would highly recommend it for any age, honestly. So the next 5-star I want to talk about is The Things We Water by Mariana Zapata. So this was actually my first Mariana Zapata, and this is, I believe, her first and only paranormal romance. So this book, you follow Nina. She is a paranormal creature, but she doesn't know like what kind of creature she is. She's basically been raised by werewolves when her adoptive parent, like those are her adoptive parents. Her biological parents kind of dropped her off and she doesn't know who they are. One day, she basically has this van life, and one day this puppy gets dropped off. But it's not really an actual puppy. It's also a paranormal creature and she doesn't really know what kind. But people are after her adoptive son now. Duncan is his name. She kind of needs help, so she goes to her best friend who's a werewolf. Her two best friends, they are mates. Both of them are werewolves. The reason she asks him for help is because she knows that he has a cousin who lives in this ranch full of paranormal creatures, and she thinks that is the safest place for her son and for her. She asks her friend if he can take her there, so they do. And the leader of the ranch is, like I said, the cousin, and his name is Henry Blackrock. Basically, this is a very slow burn romance between Nina and Henry, which of course is par for the course for Mariana Zapata. Even though this is the only book I've read by her so far, it is like she is infamous for writing slow burn romances. So she goes there, and basically this is a story of basically a slice of life of her and Duncan getting to know the people on the ranch, finding their place, and like I said, also Nina falling in love with Henry. As I'm talking about it, this is a very long book. It is 630 pages. Not much happens, but I enjoyed every single second of it. I loved it. If you watch my review, you know, like I was just gushing about this book so much. I just love it. It felt so cozy to me. I already am a sucker for werewolf romances. I just am. Henry is a werewolf, by the way. And I just love werewolves. I don't know why, I just do. Well, I mean, I do know. The biggest part of what I love about werewolf romances is the pack dynamic, and the whole ranch here felt like a very giant pack. I loved all the relationships in here. I loved Nina's relationship with Duncan. I loved Agnes in here. There were like a lot of beautiful relationship built, not just in the romance department. And I just like, I really love this book. But like, and there is some plot in here, just not a lot. It's mostly about the characters and the relationships, so keep that in mind if you read this book. The romance I did definitely enjoy, but there were some aspects that were bothering me, and it is explained at the end, but one point I just didn't appreciate Henry constantly keeping her at a distance, but then also keeping other men away from her, because one thing I forgot to mention is if you want to be part of this society, then you have to get married to somebody already living there. So she actually needs to find somebody to get married, otherwise her and her son will get kicked out. So I didn't really like him not pursuing her and then also sabotaging her way of actually staying there. But other than that, I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a beautiful story. I really loved all these characters. They kind of burrowed their way into my heart and haven't let me go, really. It was beautiful. If you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts, check out my review. And then last, but most certainly not least, my favorite book in these 10 is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. But I do think this might be one of my favorite books I read this year. At least it's definitely my favorite new release I read this year, which the next video I'm going to be uploading is tier ranking the new releases I read. So I kind of spoiled that video a little bit, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, Shield of Sparrows is Devney Perry's first fantasy romance. So in this world, there are 5 different kingdoms, which this is what the map looks like. And to keep the peace, every couple of years, a princess from a kingdom has to get married to a prince from another kingdom. And the princess that has to get married is called the Sparrow. So basically that's where the Shield of Sparrows comes from. And this book you follow Odessa, who is technically the oldest child. Her mother has passed away and now her stepmom kind of took over. And she was never supposed to be the Sparrow. Her younger sister was supposed to be the Sparrow, and then her younger brother was going to be heir to the throne. But then when the men from the other kingdom called Tora come to the palace, eventually they actually demand Odessa to be the Sparrow instead of May, the sister that was supposed to be the Sparrow. So everybody's surprised. Her father's trying to change their mind, but they are not deterred. And now her father has one night to explain to Odessa the real plan, which is to kind of infiltrate Tora and to find their hidden city, and to basically the plan was for May to become the spy for her father, and now it's Odessa's job. And Odessa really, she is not the typical heroine in fantasy romance, she really doesn't know anything. She's not strong, she doesn't know how to fight, she doesn't know archery, she doesn't know any of that stuff, whereas May, her sister, she was trained for all that stuff and is very good at those things. So basically Odessa is a fish out of water and is kind of flailing a little bit. Her husband, Xavier, the prince, is selectively mute, and he also has no interest in betting her or doing anything, but she does have an interesting dynamic with the Guardian, who is basically the prince's right-hand man. In this story, you have these monsters who are infected and are hunting down people, and every couple years, during the time where all these marriages are forged, there's also this great migration of the Crux, who are these fearsome winged creatures who are indiscriminately killing people. And in this story, it's basically the romance between Odessa and the Guardian, but also Odessa trying to figure out the secrets of Tura, but also of these Crux creatures. And there's a lot going on. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's one of my favorite books I read this year. It was very entertaining for me. I really liked Odessa, but I also really liked a lot of the side characters in here. I liked the lore in here. I liked the romance. I liked the world building. I just liked a lot of things about this book. I would highly, highly recommend it. Like I said, it's definitely one of my favorite books. It is also very easy to get through since Devney Perry is primarily a contemporary romance author, even though, like I said in the beginning, she did a very good job, in my opinion, with the world building and how she weaves that into the story, but it's not a very complicated story in my opinion. And in my review, I compared this to the Bridge Kingdom. I feel like Tora really reminds me of the land in the Bridge Kingdom, and the king also kind of reminds me of Aaron in that book. So I feel like if you enjoyed the Bridge Kingdom, you might also enjoy Shield of Sparrows. So yeah, those were the last 10 books I read. Like I said, if you want more in-depth thoughts about some of the books, check out the description to see if I reviewed the book. If you're down there, definitely tell me if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Also, what was your favorite book you read in let's do the month of May, considering this comes out the beginning of June. So I would really love to know what was your favorite book you read in May. If you do want to say that you were here, but you don't want to leave an actual comment, leave me a flower emoji, I guess, for this beautiful cover. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.